Okay, so far we talked about graphs of equations. We learned how to find x-intercept and y-intercept and graph a line, and also we saw a couple of examples for a quadratic equation or the graph which we call parabola. Now we're going to talk about slope and different types of lines. Lines and slope. Very well. First of all, when we are talking about lines, we usually use the standard form. The standard form of a line is A times x plus b times y equals to c. So what do we have here? We have some numbers like a, b, and c. These are all numbers. So a is a number, b is a number, c is a number. And this form is called the standard form of a line. In general, do not expect the equation of the line to be written nicely. In many cases, instead of saying y equals to, for example, 2x plus 1, you might see negative 2x plus y equals to 1. Written in standard form, but these two lines are exactly the same. It's written in standard form, and this is written in slope intercept form. So this is slope intercept form, which you can easily see the slope, and this form is a standard form. Very good. The difference between representation of a line. Remember that if you have the equation of the line written in standard form, it's usually not easy to identify the slope. Slope or the rate of change, help us to analyze the behavior of a line. So rate of change of a line that we call slope. In math, as you remember, it has a nice representation. We say that slope, or m, is equal to rise over run. Okay, perfect. When you have a linear equation, the very first thing that you want to know is what is the slope of the line? Is this an increasing line or this is a decreasing line? So let us classify them. Well, if you have the standard form of a line, ax plus by equals to c, first isolate your y. To analyze a line, if we have the form ax plus by equals to c, or the standard form, our very first step is to isolate y. Okay. After isolating y, we get an equation of this form. Y isolated on one side is equal to m times x plus b. We get a number multiplied by x plus another number. So we have more numbers. This guy, m itself, is called the slope, and b is called the y-intercept. Y-intercept. Okay, perfect. Let's go over a couple of examples. Very good. So here we have the following line, which written in standard form, and we want to know what is the slope. So here you have 2x minus 3y equals to 5. Find the slope. 2x minus 3y is equal to 5. First of all, the equation given to us is written in standard form. This line is written in standard form. Very well. So remember that our first step is to isolate y. Okay, I'm going to isolate y on one side. So you can start by getting rid of 2x, bring 2x to the other side. So let's do that. Subtract 2x. Okay, if you subtract 2x from left-hand side, subtract 2x from right-hand side, both of them. 2x minus 2x is 0, so we're left with negative 3y on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, you have minus 2x plus 5. Well, y is not completely isolated. It is multiplied by negative 3. To get rid of negative 3, you're going to divide by minus 3. So now divide by minus 3. Divide by minus 3. Okay, so I have to divide left-hand side and the right-hand side by negative 3. So let's see. Minus 3 divided by minus 3 is 1. So you're left with y on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, you have negative 2x plus 5 divided by negative 3. What's the meaning of that? It means that the first addend will be divided by negative 3. So you have negative 2x divided by negative 3 plus, and the second addend, which is 5, will be divided by negative 3. 5 over negative 3. We have to simplify this. Y becomes negative divided by negative is going to be positive, and 2/3 can be written in front of x minus 5/3. Well, as you can see, the format that they created is the same as the equation of the line in the slope-intercept form. And by comparing these, slope is equal to 2/3. Very well. Let's take a look at another example. I have 3x plus 2y equals to 5. Well, as we know, we have to isolate this variable y on one side. So first get rid of 3x. Subtract 3x. Okay, if I subtract 3x from left and also from right, what's left? On the left-hand side, 3x minus 3x, they cancel out. So you're left with 2y on one side. On the right-hand side, you have minus 3, negative 3x plus constant 5. Your variable is not completely isolated. It has coefficient 2 next to it. So to get rid of 2, since 2 is multiplied by y, the opposite operation is division. Divide by 2. So divide by 2, divide by 2. On the left-hand side, 2 divided by 2 is just 1. So what's left for us? Only the variable y is available on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, however, you have 2 addends. You need to divide each addend by the denominator. You have negative 3x divided by 2 plus 5 over 2. Well, here you can separate this fraction and write it as minus 3 halves times x plus 5 over 2. The number multiplied by x is our slope. So the slope of this line is negative 3 halves. Now I'm going to graph these two lines for you in Desmos. Okay, let's take a look at our Desmos. So here, the first line was 2x minus 3y equals to 5. And the second line is 3x plus 2y equals to 5. Okay, take a look at this. What is the relation between these two lines? These two lines, they are intersecting and they have an intersection at this point. These two lines are perpendicular. The angle between these two lines is 90 degrees. So here you have a perpendicular set of lines. When you graph these two lines, the angle between these two lines is 90 degrees, and we call it a set of perpendicular lines. Let's go back to the board and check their slopes. We know that these two lines are perpendicular lines. What I'm going to do, I'm going to multiply their slopes together. These two lines are perpendicular. If I multiply the slopes, the first slope multiplied by the second slope, I have negative 3 halves multiplied by 2/3. Of course, you can cancel out 3 and 3. 3 on the numerator gets canceled out with the 3 on the denominator. Also 2. 2 on the numerator gets canceled out with the 2 on the denominator. So what's left? You only left with a negative sign, which represents -1. This is the rule. If you have two perpendicular lines, after multiplying their slopes, the outcome is -1 all the time. So we're going to write down the result here. Two lines. Y1 equals to M1 x plus B1 and Y sub 2 equals to M2 x plus B sub 2 are perpendicular if M1 times M2 is always negative 1. Two lines, Y sub 1 equals to M sub 1x plus B sub 1. And the second line, Y sub 2 equals to M sub 2 x plus B sub 2 are perpendicular if you take their slopes, multiply them together, the outcome is always negative 1. Very well. So now I have this question. Suppose this line is given to you. Okay. My question is, write equation of a line which is perpendicular to the line 3x plus 2y equals to 5 and passes the origin. Okay, the origin 0 and 0. Okay. And this is 2y. So I'm looking for equation of a line that is perpendicular to this line, but it passes through the origin. What information do we have? Let us start to write equation of a line perpendicular to 3x plus 2y equals to 5. First, we need to find the slope. We already know that the slope of this line is negative 3/2. So M1 is negative 3/2. So far, so good. But what is M sub 2? What is the slope of this line that we try to write? We know that since M1 times M2 must be equal to negative 1, M1 is negative 3/2 times M2, it is negative 1. So M2 is equal to 2/3. This is the slope of this new line that you try to write. This is the slope of this new line. So we have the slope. We can easily write the equation of the line. Y is equal to mx plus b, all right, What other information do I have? I know it passes, the line passes the origin, 0 and 0. So y-intercept is just 0. So y is equal to 2/3 x. This is my line. Very good. Let's cover another example. Your line is y equals to 3x plus 5. We want to know what's the slope of a line perpendicular to that line. So example, what is the slope of a line perpendicular to y equals to 3x plus 5. So to find the slope of the line which is perpendicular to this line, we have a relation between the slopes. Since for perpendicular lines, m1 times m2 must be -1, we can use this relation and find the missing slope. The slope of the given line is 3. So you have 3 times the second slope equals to -1. So m2 is -1/3. This is the slope of the second line. So what if we have this guy here, the slope of a line which is perpendicular to the following line. Here you have what is the slope of the line perpendicular to y equals to -3x plus 5. So we know that they are perpendicular to each other. So m1 times m2 must be -1. We already know one slope, which is -3. So let us substitute that. -3 times m sub 2 is -1. Well, if you do the division, m2 becomes 1/3. This is the slope of the line that you're trying to find. Very well. So as you can see, as long as you have one of the slopes, the second slope is negative reciprocal of the first slope. Here your first slope is -3, negative reciprocal gives you positive slope. So one of the slope is always positive, the other slope is always negative when you're working with perpendicular lines. Let us write it on the board here and then talk about parallel lines. So for perpendicular lines, M1 times M2 is always -1, their slopes, multiplication or slopes, or you can say that, hey, if you have one slope, the second slope is negative reciprocal. So if we have one slope, the second slope is the negative reciprocal. So for example, if M1 is equal to 3, its negative reciprocal is -1/3. If M1 is equal to -1/3, M2 is 1/3. If M1 is equal to 1/2, M2 is -2. If M1 is equal to -1/2, M2 is equal to 2. That's how you can find the slope of perpendicular lines if one slope is given to you. Negative reciprocal. So these are the rules for perpendicular lines. Now let us define parallelized two lines, like y1 equals to m1 times x plus b1, and y sub 2 equals to m sub 2x plus b sub 2 are parallel. They are parallel to each other if they have the same slope. If m1 is equal to m2, or they have the same slope. Then in that case, we say that two lines are parallel to each other. Parallel lines with the same slope. For example, you might have the following set of equations. Y is equal to 2x plus 1, and 3y is equal to 6x plus 1. Well, in the first glance, you might say, hey, they are not parallel to each other. But remember that we need to find the slope of each of these lines. The slope of the first line is obvious. It is 2. M1 is 2. What about the slope of the second line? To find the slope of the second line, we have to do a little bit of algebra. We have to divide by 3 to isolate y. Divide by 3. So if I divide by 3, divided by 3, divided by 3, divided by 3, what do I get? 3 and 3, they cancel out each other. You're left with y equals to 6 divided by 3 is 2 multiplied by x plus 1/3. Well, as you can see, the slope of the second line is also 2. M2, m sub 2 is also 2. They are equal to each other. So we have parallel lines. We have parallel lines. So now what if I ask you about slope of a line? Suppose you have 2 points and you want to know what is the slope of the line passing through those 2 points. Example. Find the slope of a line passing through these 2 points. The very first point is -2 and 0. And the second point is 3 and 1, 3, 1. So remember that if you have 2 points, x1, y1, x2, and y2, then the slope is the difference in y values over the difference in x values. You have y1 minus y2 divided by x1 minus x2. You can switch the numerator, switch the denominator, and they are going to be the same. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Make sure when you're labeling your points, you follow either the first formula or the second formula. You cannot change the order. So let us start by labeling these. This is my x sub 1 and this is my y1. For example, you can change these as well. And this guy is x2 and y2. So let us follow the first formula. M, or the slope, is equal to y1 minus y2 divided by x1 minus x2. What is y1? y1 is 0. So I'm going to copy down 0. Minus, I have guys subtraction here. Minus y2, which is 1, divided by x1, which is -2, minus x2, which is 3. So I left with 0 minus 1, which is -1, divided by -5. I have 2 negative signs. I can cancel those out, and becomes 1 over 5.